Varys and Illyrio. Illyrio and Varys. Though they may be some of the most talked about schemers in the Ice and Fire community, and though their plots and schemes may be some of the most torn apart and analyzed by the Ice and Fire community, these two names still draw an enormous amount of attention, debate, and discourse. And perhaps that's why you, the random people of the internet, when I polled you, decided that you would like to see a series on Varys and Illyrio. So while I don't know if I have too much to contribute to this discussion, I will try to dive into these two characters as best I can, and perhaps try to offer some additional insight where I'm able to. And along the way, we'll hit up all the big beats. Who is young Griff? Are they actually Blackfyre supporters? What was their whole deal during the reign of the Mad King? And did these guys hire those other guys who don't have faces? And with that, let's dive in and examine these two prominent players in the Game of Thrones. So before diving too deep into who Varys and Illyrio are as individuals, I think we should talk about what they want and how they plan to accomplish it. Or at least speculate on that. Now, we don't have to speculate too hard about what they want. That seems to be pretty clear. They want Aegon, young Griff, Fagon, whatever you want to call him, to be king of Westeros. Why they want that, and the methodology surrounding how they'll get him there, that's perhaps a little more complicated. But it's a good starting point nonetheless. They want to put a new monarch on the throne of Westeros. So how are they going to do that? How are they going to put this new king on the throne? Well, a key factor in their plan seems to be causing instability in the continent of Westeros, not just by disrupting the noble houses and causing internal civil conflicts within the society there on the continent, but this also seems to involve bringing in foreign armies to further exacerbate the civil conflicts and create a worse and more tumultuous environment, after which they can bring in Aegon. Now, when we talk about internal civil turmoil, we seem to be dealing with the problem caused by the Lannister incest. That is, Jaime and Cersei having kids together and Robert's heirs not actually being Robert's heirs. And the foreign force that's supposed to be brought into the continent to exacerbate this turmoil and cause a worsening of conditions would appear to be the Dothraki army. This is the army of warriors under Khal Drogo. But wait a minute, isn't Khal Drogo's army supposed to put Viserys and then next potentially Daenerys on the throne? Don't Varys and Illyrio want Aegon and Daenerys to get married even at a certain point? Aren't these guys trying to do the best for the realm? I mean, like, what is even going on here? And what about dragons? Weren't Illyrio and Varys trying from square one to get dragons to hatch with Dany? And to all these questions I would say, yeah, no, sorta, kinda, not really. It's up in the air, and the plan is subject to change. But let's start with young Griff, because young Griff seems to be the unchanging element in this plan. So, starting from that point, their objective is to put young Griff on the throne. And knowing that is their objective, let's go back and look at one of the most important Varys and Illyrio's encounters. In fact, the only encounter so far in the book where we've seen the two men actually discussing their plans together.
The fools tried to kill his son, and what's worse, they made a mummer's farce of it. He is not a man to put that aside. I warn you, the wolf and lion will soon be at each other's throats, whether we will it or no. Too soon, the first voice with the accent complained. What good is war now? We are not ready. Delay! What would you have me do? Asked the torchbearer, a stout man in a leather half-cape. Even in heavy boots, his feet seemed to glide soundlessly over the ground. A round, scarred face and a stubble of dark beard showed under his steel cap. If one hand can die, why not the second? Replied the man with the accent and the forked yellow beard. His rings glimmered in the torchlight, red gold and pale silver, crusted with rubies, sapphires, slitted yellow tiger's eyes. Every finger wore a ring, but some had two. Before is not now, and this hand is not the other, the scarred man said as they stepped out into the hall. Perhaps so, the forked beard replied, pausing to catch his breath after the long climb. Nonetheless, we must have time. The princess is with child. The Khal will not bestir himself until his son is born. You'll know how they are, these savages. If he does not bestir himself soon, it may be too late, the stout man in the steel cap said. This is no longer a game for two players, if it ever was. Stannis Baratheon and Lysa Arryn have fled beyond my reach, and the Whispers say they are gathering swords around them. The Knight of Flowers writes Highgarden, urging his Lord Father to send his sister to court. The girl is a maid of 14, sweet and beautiful and tractable, and Lord Renly and Sir Loras intend that Robert should wed her, and make a new queen. Littlefinger... The gods only know what game Littlefinger is playing, yet Lord Stark's the one who troubles my sleep. He has the bastard, he has the book, and soon enough he'll have the truth. And now his wife has abducted Tyrion Lannister thanks to Littlefinger's meddling. Lord Tywin will take that for an outrage, and Jaime has a queer affection for the imp. If the Lannisters move north, that will bring the Tullys in as well. Delay, you say? Make haste, I reply. Even the finest of jugglers cannot keep 100 balls in the air forever.
This is, obviously, a very interesting encounter, and perhaps one of the only times that we actually get an honest exchange between individuals involving Varys or Illyrio. Now, the encounter is far more revealing for Varys than it is for Illyrio, but we can glean quite a bit about both of them just from this brief exchange. We get an example of Varys' disguise ability, we see his sympathy towards the Starks. Later on in the passage, beyond what I read, we find out about little birds. Varys informs us about Tyrell plots. We hear about Littlefinger, and we get an idea of where the Lannister incest is going to play into Varys and Illyrio's plots. And while telling us less things, Magister Illyrio does expose us to his rings and to the idea that Drogo is being manipulated to their cause. However, you've probably noticed that the one thing that didn't come up in this conversation that perhaps should have come up was dragons, or even dragon's eggs. And while we will be returning to dragons, like so many things later on in this series, I'd like us to think for a moment now that maybe dragons were not part of the original plan, and maybe even that Varys and Illyrio had no idea the eggs would hatch. Indeed, it seems that rather than a young Viserys bartering for a Dothraki army with the hand of his sister, Varys and Illyrio were bartering for a Dothraki army with the hand of his sister. And they didn't really seem to care if he lived or died, though they preferred that he hang out at Illyrio's manse until his time had come. I mean, after all, a vicious civil war involving numerous houses and incest and the downfall of the new monarchy, and then the rise of the son or daughter, or potentially both, of the Mad King leading an army of foreign invaders, could easily set the kingdom up to be willing to accept some kind of savior. So the plan. Raise young Griff in secret, educate him to be king, carefully plan the toppling of the current Westerosi government and a plunge into civil war, get one or both of the Mad King's heirs at the head of a Dothraki army, and have them invade the Seven Kingdoms, and then finally bring in young Griff, the savior, to clear things up and install him on the throne, crowning him Aegon, the sixth of his name. But then dragons show up, and things get a little bit more complicated. So on the surface, even with the hiccup of dragons, this seems to be a relatively cut and dry plan. This seems to be very simplistic. However, below the seeming simplicity lies an absolute boatload of questions. And those questions become very apparent when we stop asking how they plan to do this operation and begin asking why they want to do this operation. Because while many factions would like to install a leader onto the Iron Throne, generally a member of their household, they have pretty simplistic and transparent reasons. But Varys and Illyrio's reasoning is a lot more muddled. I mean, they don't even actually come from Westeros. And Illyrio himself seems to live a lavish life that far exceeds anything he could get from helping support the takeover of a new monarch in Westeros. Tyrion even grills Illyrio rather extensively along these lines, trying to figure out exactly what his motivations are. In a dance with dragons while on their way to drop off Tyrion with the crew of the Shy Maid, Tyrion and Illyrio have this exchange. "Tell me," Tyrion said as he drank, "why should a Magister of Pentos give 3 figs who wears the crown in Westeros? Where is the gain for you in this venture, my lord?" The fat man dabbed grease from his lips.
I am an old man, grown weary of this world and its treacheries. Is it so strange that I should wish to do some good before my days are done? To help a sweet young girl regain her birthright?
Next, you'll be offering me a suit of magic armor and a palace in Valyria. And not even a page later, when Tyrion prods at Magister Illyrio again, he is met with a series of somewhat cryptic answers that he does not take at face value. Tyrion pondered what he knew of Volantis, oldest and proudest of the 9 free cities. Something was awry here. Even with half a nose, he could smell it. It said there are 5 slaves for every free man in Volantis. Why would the Triarchs assist a queen who smashed the slave trade? He pointed at Illyrio. For that matter, why would you? Slavery may be forbidden by the laws of Pentos, but you've a finger in that trade as well, and maybe a whole hand. And yet you conspire for the Dragon Queen, and not against her? Why? What do you hope to gain from Queen Daenerys? Are we back to that again? You are a persistent little man. Illyrio gave a laugh and slapped his belly. As you will. The Beggar King swore that I should be his master of coin, and a lordly lord as well. Once he wore the golden crown, I should have my choice of castles, even Casterly Rock if I desired. Tyrion snorted wine back up the scarred stump that had been his nose. My father would have loved to hear that. Your father had no cause for concern. Why would I want the rock? My manse is large enough for any man, and more comfortable than your drafty Westerosi castles. Master of coin, though. The fat man peeled another egg. I am fond of coins. Is there any sound as sweet as the clink of gold on gold? A sister screams. Are you quite certain that Daenerys will make good her brother's promises? She will or she will not. Illyrio bit the egg in half. I told you, my little friend, not all that a man does is done for gain. Believe as you wish, but even old fat fools like me have friends, and debts of affection to repay. Liar, thought Tyrion. There's something in this venture worth more to you than coin or castles. Likewise, Varys, someone who is quite adept at telling lies, seems to be unwilling to reveal his true motivations. Now, Varys himself likes to state that everything he does is for the good of the realm, or for the realm, implying that it's all about peace, unification, happiness, the small folk, making things better, putting a righteous ruler on the seat, and all that yada yada. However, it seems pretty clear that Varys, like Illyrio, isn't just some kind of benevolent do-gooder. And far from being a friend to any of the existing factions, Varys is carefully withholding information and manipulating the game to his own ends. Is this your own scheme? He gasped out at Varys. Or are you in league with Littlefinger? That seemed to amuse the eunuch. I would sooner wed the black goat of Qohor. Littlefinger is the second most devious man in the 7 kingdoms. Oh, I feed him choice whispers, sufficient so that he thinks I am his, just as I allow Cersei to believe I am hers. And just as you let me believe that you were mine. Tell me, Lord Varys, who do you truly serve? Varys smiled thinly. Why, the realm, my good lord. How could you ever doubt that? I swear it by my lost manhood. I serve the realm, and the realm needs peace. He finished his last swallow of wine, and tossed the empty skin aside. So again, we have to ask, why? What is all of this about? What is motivating Varys and Illyrio, and what does any of that have to do with young Griff? And unfortunately, for us to start making heads or tails of any of this, we are going to have to wait for part 2. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in part 2.